Hey there, this is Stephanie, and let's dive into a little bit of information about designing rubrics for understanding. So, I know in our last professional learning day, we spent a bunch of time really diving into the concept of understanding and the implications might be for us collecting evidence of understanding. And part of that evidence collection is also designing rubrics that intentionally incorporate success criteria that pertain to understanding goals. So, we're going to talk about that in this video series. Before I do that, I just want to mention the information in this video series has been culled from the book, The Understanding by Design Guide to Advanced Concepts in Creating and Reviewing Units by Wiggins and McTighe, the UBD creators. And more specifically, this information is from Module J in the text, which has to do with identifying evaluative criteria for assessments. So if you want to read more or just go straight to the source, feel free to take a gander at this book. So, before we really dive into how we might create rubrics for understanding, let's just really quickly talk about the benefits of criteria based evaluation. So, evaluating students using rubrics or some sort of success criteria. I feel like at this point, I'm probably preaching to the choir because I know consistently in our building, teachers use rubrics. But just in case, I'll just go really quickly through this list, and I'm hoping a lot of it really resonates with you already. So, one benefit of criteria based evaluation is it makes evaluating students' performance consistent and defensible. So, I know a lot of PLCs have done work creating rubrics together or leveling papers together or leveling student samples together. And that provides some consistency in evaluating student work. And then, in terms of defensibility, you have a set list of criteria that you're using in order to evaluate student work for grading purposes or for even when just providing feedback. So in case anybody ever asks you about it, you have this clearly delineated set of criteria. Once key evaluation criteria are identified, tests and learning events can be planned to promote aligned learning. So I remember at the beginning of my career, I might assign a task and then develop the rubric after the fact. But determining the rubric or success criteria in advance really helps PLCs, helps individual teachers plan learning events because they are specifically aligned to help students be successful on that task as demonstrated by the criteria that were chosen. And we'll talk a little bit more in another video in this series. Well, how do we make sure that our criteria align with our understanding goals in particular? Another benefit is that providing criteria in advance makes performance goals transparent for all. So there's this idea of a content standard, which is the standards that we look up that are provided by the Common Core or the state of Michigan or any other educational body out there. So content standards versus performance standards. And performance standards is like the level at which we expect students to perform to show success with the goals that we've created based upon the content standards. So if we make those performance standards or performance goals transparent for all students in advance, they know what they're aiming for. Next up, teachers using evaluation criteria, they end up internalizing these qualities of solid performance. And so that helps them when they're giving feedback to students, really narrow in on those qualities of solid performance and also emphasize those when teaching. So it definitely improves the learning process for students because teachers have a sense of what the appropriate performance standard should be. Next up, students have clear, stable goals for their learning and they can see exemplars. One best practice is to have students potentially look at exemplars of work that might be adjacent to a task that they're completing themselves. So they can use the success criteria to determine what a quote unquote good example of a task would be. And then maybe even see some exemplars that are not perfect so they can see potential pitfalls. So it definitely gives students a clearer picture of what they should be doing. And then finally, students can self-assess as they learn and they work, which enhances their learning. So that student self-assessment piece against those success criteria or rubrics really helps students internalize what they should be doing to continue to grow as learners.